And then I've got my phone set to do not disturb, so the headphone incident won't happen again.
All right. Hey, can you check YouTube and make sure we're going?
Yeah.
Because my computer shut down. I had to restart it today.
Okay.
Had a power
Yeah,
hiccup.
I've got it pulled up. Let's see.
Testing, checking 1 2 3. Testing, checking 1 2 3.
Yeah, everything sounds good.
All right,
I
good.
sounded a little hot, so I dropped my levels down a little bit.
Okay. Let everybody know we're here. And let me get back to our notes here. All right. I'm good to go if you are.
Yeah, we're here, so we might as well do a show.
Yeah, might as well. Since we're here and we're streaming,
Yeah.
might as well do a show. So here we go. And 3, 2, 1. That got a little hiccup, so I'm going to... Ooh, check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. Ooh, that was weird. All right, here we go. We're going to restart there. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Greetings, programs, and we're back after a little week vacation from last week. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
And we had to take the last week off because Derek had some stuff pop up last week and just decided to go ahead and take the week off.
Yeah, it was like multiple things within the span of like half an hour. So, when you have a lot of irons in the fire, sometimes everyone wants what they've requested from you at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, it's probably best that I not do the podcast.
Yeah.
So sorry about that, but we are back, and I'm going to be talking about a game. I will say that. I'll save the rest of it for later, but oof.
Yeah. I'm not going to have much to say about it because I didn't actually play the game. I just watched some video, but this should be an interesting review, and I'm ready to get to it.
Yeah. On an interesting note, you and I had a rare in-person meeting yesterday.
Yeah, we had to meet up yesterday because Derek got. I made some shirts for Derek for the new movie he's working on, Plain Jane, which is one of the reasons why we took last week off because he had stuff to do with the movie. And we met up yesterday, and first time we'd seen each other in person since Pensacon.
Yeah, Pensacon last year, I think.
Yeah, because you weren't there.
Yeah, because I didn't go this year.
It's
So
been a long time since we've seen each other in person.
Yeah, it was, unfortunately, it was one of those like meet up, grab the shirts, and head back home because I still had a lot to do, and traffic was just awful with all the everyone traveling. Like those that went to Pensacola for 4th of July weekend were going back home, and then those that went out of Pensacola because it was just as bad going back home.
And plus, too, going through those of you who are local listeners know that going through the tunnel in Mobile is already a harrowing experience. Trying to get through there, and then on a holiday weekend, you may as well forget it. You just there's no getting through that tunnel without getting backed up for no reason whatsoever. How does traffic do that? It'll just back up for no reason, and then you'll just hit a certain point where you're just going. You just go, no wreck, nothing. Just people slow down and stop for no reason.
That's Joey asks, is 118 hours or is 18 hours away considered local? Maybe on the outskirts.
Yeah, a little bit.
We'll say that, yeah. But no, so there's an exit right after the Mobile tunnel that I took because the bridge from Mobile to Daphne was so backed up. And that road always freaks me out because when it puts you back on the interstate, you're like on the same level as the water. And you have like the waves coming up, and I'm like, I'm gonna drown.
I honestly have
I'm gonna die here.
nightmares about that road, honestly, because I've had to take it in a few times, going back and forth between here and Pensacola, and sometimes there's just wrecks. There's wrecks all the time on that bridge, so you got to take the, that whatever that little causeway is, and you're right, like the water is like right up to the road, and you're just on this road out in the middle of the water, and you're just like, we're gonna die. We're gonna die here.
It's a short drizzle away from being flooded. I'll just say that. What one cool thing though is whenever I got back in town, I went by the Video Game Trading Post, which is a retro gaming store here in town. They a while back they bought the building that was right next door to them, so they expanded their store, and they've got a lot of great stuff. It's everything from the freaking was it the Lynx,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
handheld thing? Yeah, they had one of those. The coolest thing was they had a Nintendo Satellaview that we've talked
What?
about for gaming history. Everything like all the accessories and everything all packaged together.
How
I'm
much?
just like, it was $300.
That's not bad, actually.
No, it was one of those that I'm like, if I had gotten paid like that day, I would have really thought about it.
Yeah, there's this a new game exchange opened up close to here over in Gulfport, and we went there last week, and I noticed in their Nintendo stuff they actually have a copy of DuckTales 2.
Oh
And
wow.
they want $100 for it, but the label is all torn up. So I want to ask some of the
Mm.
listeners out there, what are your feelings on buying a game that's worth a lot of money like that and then replacing the label? I know that's kind of frowned upon, but how do people really feel about that? Especially if I bought it, I would never sell it, resell it, but I would like to have a good at least reprinted cover for it. On the actual NES cartridge, the artwork, the sticker.
Oh, Joey says 1999 with a crap label.
Well, I
Look,
mean, it's an expensive game. It's like a very rare game, and the label is pretty torn up. I mean, you can see it from the top. That's why I asked about it. I was like, just out of curiosity, how much are y'all asking for that DuckTales or DuckTales 2? He went and grabbed it and he pulled it out of the thing, and like the whole rest of the label is just like ripped, like clean off of the cartridge itself.
my thing with replacing the label, if you don't intend to resell it, I think it's fine because like you if you're like say if I were to go over to your apartment and you had DuckTales 2, if I see that there's a nice label on it, I'm not going to know that you replaced it unless you told me.
Yeah, Chuck
Like
in
I'm
the
not going to
chat
think
room.
anything of it.
Chuck says, "Well, whoever you leave it to when you die can handle that problem of dealing with a faux new label."
Uh,
Yeah, Joey. Yeah,
wouldn't that be
there's
something to find
nothing.
out?
There's nothing left to glue on. I mean, the label is almost completely torn off of it. So there's all there is Ducktales 2 on the top of the cartridge, but the rest of the label is just kind of ripped.
I'm fine with replacing them personally,
I'm
but
seriously
they
thinking
shouldn't
about it.
ask for an outrageous price if because to me that's a damaged cartridge or a damaged box, whatever your situation is.
Maybe I can talk them down to 50. If I can get them down to $50, I'll take it.
You got to haggle.
Yeah, I might go haggle and see what they'll do.
I wish I had taken a picture of it, but there was a Super Nintendo game that they had complete in box that I had never heard of, and it was $300.
What was it?
So I can't remember. It seemed like a spin-off game of something. I'm gonna have to go back and take a picture of it.
Okay.
But the other cool thing that they had there too is they had a Sega Genesis with all the attachments, like the Sega CD, the 32X, and it was all together.
Ah, the Sega toilet bowl.
Yeah, I'm like this is Sega's attempt at making a transformer.
Yeah.
Geez, that thing it took up like it was in like a tiered glass shelf, and it was at the very bottom, it took up like a fourth of the shelf.
Yeah, and even if you get it, you got to go get like how many plugins is that? You've got to go get like three or four surge protectors just to plug everything in.
Yeah, about to say reserve a whole surge protector
Yeah, you
just for the Sega Transformer.
got to daisy chain like three of them together just to have enough plugins.
Yeah, that's not an electrical hazard at all.
No, not at all. But we got a
Uh,
good bit of news to get to tonight. We might not actually get to this month in video game history because we got so much news to get to. So you ready to jump into
yeah,
it?
yeah. If we don't get to gaming history, we can always save it for next week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And all of tonight's stories were submitted to us by Armez Jackson and I am Rampage. And if you have a news story you'd like us to cover, send them to nerdcaveretro at gmail.com. And the first story is from... hold on, I got the wrong page pulled up here. Here we go. From levelup.com. A never released Sega console will hit the market thanks to a Brazilian company. In the 90s, Sega experienced great success, remembered for its war against Nintendo during the Genesis and SNES era. But it also, let's see, there were plans for Sega. There were plans for the Sega Neptune, a system that never went on sale but will now see the light thanks to a Brazilian company. The Brazilian company GamesCare has introduced the GF1 Neptune, a console inspired by Sega's 90s project that never came to fruition. Let's see. The Sega, they're talking about the Sega Saturn here. I'm trying to get to what the Neptune actually is. It will be officially unveiled on June 30th at Gamescom Latam. What does that mean? And is touted as an attractive option for players and developers. Additionally, it will have its own online platform. It was designed to be an irresistible choice for nostalgic gamers, offering perfect reproduction of timeless classics and access to proprietary and exclusive services through the system's network. Moreover, the console is a friendly platform for creators who want to express their talents and ideas, especially in the indie game development scene.
Yeah, and it says up here that that Sega thought of a console that combined the Genesis slash Mega Drive and the 32X due to the
Yeah.
development and sales issues of the latter system. I mean that would have been a really cool thing actually, and I like the name Neptune. You know, it sticks out
Yeah.
and it looks pretty cool. I mean, it looks like a typical console from that time.
And
It
Joey
says
says the
here,
original consoles, there's only two in existence right now, if not three.
wow, he's got to get one.
Oh, he's definitely getting one. I know Joey's getting one of these. You don't even have to say
I'll
that.
I'll trade you 232 Dreamcasts for a Neptune.
It will be HDMI with a 1080p resolution and digital audio, SD card slot for easy updates and media storage, high-speed internet connection. Let's see, connection slot for the original Sega CD hardware and future peripherals. High-quality analog audio and video output for the most demanding players.
That's crazy. And that's another thing too at the store I went to, they even had Sega CD games.
That's
And
awesome.
like outside of finding a copy of Sonic CD out in the wild every now and then, I don't think I've ever even touched a Sega CD game. So this is really cool. I'd be interested in this. I want to find out more.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about price, but it just says stay informed on Level Up. So go to levelup.com and bookmark it.
Well, I have bookmarked it. So there we go. Next up from NintendoLife.com, Atari 50 game list. Every playable game in the anniversary, celebration, and expanded edition. When Atari and Digital Eclipse launched Atari 50, the anniversary collection on November 11th of 2022, we honestly thought that the compilation would be left well alone in the coming months. It already boasted over 100 playable games and 5 separate timelines, providing players with an extensive look at the company's storied history. However, Digital Eclipse isn't done. Far from it. It has already updated the game with an additional 12 playable titles, and now it's planning on releasing a further 39 games plus 2 additional timelines with the upcoming Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration Expanded Edition. That is a mouthful to say.
Yeah.
We've compiled a list of every playable game currently available on Atari 50. So I'm not going to read all of these,
Yeah, it's a
obviously,
lot.
but yeah. So there are a total of 7 reimagined titles, which are reworked versions of Atari classics, including the lost final chapter of the Sword Quest franchise and a remaster of Yar's Revenge that lets you switch between modern and retro visuals. Those are Haunted Houses, Neo Outbreak, Quadratank, Sword Quest Airworld, Touch Me. I don't know why you would name a game that. VCTR, SCTR.
No, thank
There's
you.
my next review.
I'll pass.
Yeah, VCTR dash SCTR and Yar's Revenge Enhanced. We got to do a Yar's Revenge dual review at some point.
Yeah,
Like we've talked about the game for years. We've got to do it.
I know there's a new version of Yar's Revenge that just came out not too long ago, which I keep forgetting to go check out. But yeah, I always like Yar's Revenge. That's actually probably in my top 5 to 10 actual good games for the Atari 2600, which I know there's a lot of love for the 2600 out there. I know you people are out there, but let's just face it, that console only had a handful of good games.
Yeah, people talk about the Atari more for the nostalgia purpose than
Yeah.
actually like it being good. But there's a lot of games, as we mentioned. They've expanded it quite a bit. You could go to nintendolife.com to read the full list, and it's all organized between Atari 2600, the arcade, Atari 5200, 7800, the Lynx,
Hmm.
the 800, and the Jaguar. Even the Jaguar's getting some love with
This
this
is a
thing. There are
good
9 Jaguar games
This is a
in this
good
collection.
collection to have. I mean, Atari is killing it with this. What is it? The Atari 50, and then now with all this stuff coming out, man, this is awesome.
This is like the Lord of the Rings expanded
Yeah,
edition.
Nintendo
I might
needs to
have
do
to.
something like this.
Now, let's not talk
Yeah,
crazy.
well, yeah, we can't do that. Let's see. Next story is from
I'm
IGN.com.
so excited for this.
Oh, I know. Crazy Taxi reboot and open world massively multiplayer AAA game, Sega says. Sega has big ambitions for the Crazy Taxi reboot. It's described as an open world, massively multiplayer AAA game. During the Game Awards 2023, they announced new games in their Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi franchises. In February, Takaya Sagawa, who runs Sega's support studio in Sapporo, briefly mentioned Crazy Taxi Reboot as a AAA game. Now, in a developer-focused video interview reported on and translated by Automaton, Sega offered more information. Of course, they said, like I've said 8 times now, it is a large-scale open-world, massively multiplayer driving game powered by Unreal Engine. Can now be played by many players at once with the goal of maintaining the classic Crazy Taxi style amid these new mechanics. There's mentions of a theme park-like map and motifs inspired by the U.S. West Coast. As Automaton noted, one image reveals the player driving a police car, suggesting new types of modes.
I can't wait. This is going to be like a must get. I didn't have this on my 2024 bingo card, an open world
Yeah.
Crazy Taxi game. This is the game that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah, and Chuck's right. It there was so much good stuff on the soundtrack. They need to get the soundtrack right.
Yeah, and agreed, especially The Offspring.
Yeah.
Because I think of Crazy Taxi whenever I hear The Offspring.
So even if they have to go back to, early 2000s, late 90s bands and just re-license those songs again, do it. Just do it.
Yeah, if they if they go with an actual soundtrack, they have to get the original one.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the modern stuff is not gonna be the same.
No.
Because when you think of Crazy Taxi, you think of songs from that era.
Yeah.
And you might as well just you complete the nostalgia trip and you get that soundtrack back.
Hmm.
But no, I think this actually sounds really fun. In the back of my mind, I was hoping that it would be something like this,
I
but I didn't
think
think
it
it would actually happen.
I think it would be fun if it's if it's a huge multiplayer game. You get to play as the police and chase the
Oh,
other people
yes.
in the taxis. That'd be fun.
That would make for an awesome multiplayer game.
And
Like you
now that I
get a
think
team
about
in
it,
police cars and then
yeah,
a team in taxis.
because now that I think about it, there's so much stuff you could do in that world, especially just being multiplayer like that. Why is nobody working on a Twisted Metal game like this too? Like we've been wanting a Twisted Metal multiplayer game for years. Like just do it.
I would have thought with the success of the show that they would have announced something like that,
You would think.
but that makes too much sense.
I wonder what now with the technology we have. Chuck says the lithium channel on XM. Why can't they just have the game linked to XM radio and just be able to play XM radio in the game?
That would be so cool. I would love that. Next story comes to us from timeextension.com. Evercade maker Blaze is releasing two new Super Pocket consoles this year. Evercade maker Blaze is releasing two new Super Pocket handhelds as part of its Hyper Mega Tech line. Super Pocket Atari Edition will contain 50 arcade games, including Asteroids, Berserk, Crystal Castles, Frenzy, and more, as well as over 30 console and handheld greats. They have the full list here. I'll just list off a few: Asteroids, Berserk, Canyon Bomber, Crystal Castles, Lost Tomb, Millipede, Missile Command, Pong, Skydiver, Adventure, Gravatar, Haunted
Ooh,
House,
Tempest.
Street Racer.
Tempest is on here.
Yep, Tempest, Video Pinball, Wizard, of course, Yar's Revenge, Bounty Bob Strikes Back. I
What
love
is
that title.
that?
I don't know, but I'm interested.
I think that sounds like a
Asteroids,
future review for the show.
it does. Asteroids, Centipede, Desert Falcon, Fatal Run, Ninja Golf, Motorcycle, Basket Brawl, Kung Food, Scrapyard Dog. Kung Food sounds like something I would review.
Yeah.
Scrapyard Dog, Super Asteroids and Missile Command, and Warbirds.
This is
And of course,
quite a
much more.
list. These things look cool though. I actually really like the one. It's the Atari Special Edition, and it's got like the wood grain finish on it, like the original
Yeah,
Atari 2600. That's very very tempting.
yeah, it is. Let's see. These two new models will cost £49 slash $59 and will be released in October. Pre-orders go live on July 31st. The Super Pocket Atari Edition will also be available in wood grain, which is limited to, ironically enough, 2,600 units, and that will be $74.
It's actually not bad.
Mm-mm.
I think I'm gonna have to get it.
Man, Ataris, they're just firing on all cylinders. Like we're talking about them pretty much every week now.
I know. Well, pre-orders go live, like you said, July 31st. They'll be released in October. This might have to be a thing. I might have to get this.
So the wood grain edition pre-orders are already open.
Oh, well, they're probably already gone then by now.
Let's see. They've got a link to it. Wood grain edition
Oh, here's the link. I didn't even see
on
the link
fun
down here.
on Funstock,
Sold out.
of course.
Yep, sold out. Sorry, everybody.
That
Sorry, everybody. The only one you can get is the Super Pocket. Nope. Wait. Hold on. Just 1 second. That's the Super Pocket Wood Green Special. Here's the other one. Yep, that one's sold out too. Never mind. The both of the wood grain ones are sold out now.
I don't know what it is with this type of stuff, but whenever you have to pre-order something, you have to do it like right then or else it's gone.
Yeah, especially with only 2,600 units, like that thing probably sold out in seconds.
Probably. But it's still really cool though.
Let's see. From mynintendonews.com, 7 NES games available for Switch Online members. Nintendo has officially announced some more additions. Urban Champion, Golf, Donkey Kong Jr. Math. There's your game right there. Mock Rider, The Mystery of Atlantis, Solar Jetman, and Cobra Triangle are now available for the Nintendo Switch Online members and can be found in the NES Retro Game Library. That's a nice little dump of games they just put on there. I honestly, I really do like that black box golf game. It's still just a good golf game.
Yeah, there's something about seeing the classic like black box art that just makes me
Yeah.
happy.
And I know
Yeah,
Cobra Triangle's a good game, but I think I want to review that at some point because I know the people love Cobra Triangle, and I don't think I've ever played it.
yeah, I haven't either. There's a couple of these like Cobra Triangle and Solar Jetman I have never heard of, honestly. I know of the rest of them. But yeah, when I'm feeling educational, I might throw in a review of Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
And Urban Champion is the game too, where I think it's just a fighting game, but in order to win, you got to knock the other guy into like the sewer or something like that. It's kind of a weird little game.
Yeah, that is weird. Hmm. And our last story comes to us from theguardian.com. I'm probably going to get the pronunciation wrong,
Hmm.
so I apologize, but Kian or Kyan, the most delayed video game in history,
Hmm.
released after 22
Good
years.
lord.
That that thing can legally drink by now. In 2002, a group of five Italians made the local news. They were going to be the first company in the country to develop a game for Nintendo's popular portable, the Game Boy Advance. The cadre pulled together a few €100 and some computers to prepare for the project. They had no experience making games, and they didn't even have a programmer.
Hmm.
All they had was a love for video games, a shared hatred of working for bosses, and endless optimism. For the next 2 years, the group worked away. Late nights were common, and the team barely took any time off. It was a grueling time, but they were determined to make an ambitious game with complex features. Its name was Kian. If you haven't heard of it, that's because it never came out until now. The action platformer didn't see the light of day until this year, by which time most of the original team had long since moved on. Only one member of the group of five remained. That's crazy.
Hmm.
He never lost belief in the project. It currently holds the record for the most delayed video game in history. 22 years eclipses the 15-year journey of the infamous Duke Nukem Forever, a shooter that was delayed for so long that it became a meme. After all this time, people now can actually buy it on a Game Boy Advance cartridge.
Wow.
This is one of the wildest stories we've talked about. 22 years.
I mean,
That's
that's
nuts.
determination to actually get this thing out.
I feel like we've got to find a copy of this somewhere
Um,
because I want to play this.
I'm trying to see if there's a link here to where you can actually buy it at.
Da, 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 da. And there's a spiritual successor being worked on.
Wow.
I hope it that doesn't take 22 years.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, kudos to keeping the dream alive, man, because that's
Yeah.
there. Think about how many games are out there that just got dropped and are lost to history, or like we've talked about before, where they would find these, you know, early builds of these games, like in just random places, and then luckily dump the ROM to where it can at least be seen. How many games are still out there that got started, got mostly made, and then had funding pulled from it? How many other games are out there in the world that just are never going to see the light of day?
Well, I think also this is a great story to read if you need like inspiration, if you're working on something and you
Yeah,
start to kind of lose a little bit of hope because obviously we won't read the full article because it's pretty long, but it
yeah.
goes pretty in depth of the story of how this game ultimately got made, and it's really inspiring. So I would recommend, anybody go to theguardian.com and look this up. It's pretty awesome. And kudos to let me look up the gentleman's name. Fabio Belsanti,
Yeah.
who's a game designer and never lost belief in the project.
Hopefully
That's
he'll
incredible.
they'll it'll have a digital release because it did come out for what was the Game Boy Advance, and there aren't too many, can't go to the store and buy a Game Boy Advance anymore.
Yeah. No, hopefully they will do a digital release because I would love to play it. There's a trailer attached to it. It's only like a minute long. It looks just like a game that would have been on the Game Boy Advance. It's got very kind of like cartoonish kind of graphics, but it looks like a game that would be right up my alley.
And Joey says so. Fabio gets all the profits now. I don't know how that would work.
I mean, he absolutely has to get the biggest cut if they split it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's the only one that stayed the course for 22 years to get this thing made.
I feel like, I mean, if the other ones, if they dipped out like a year or two into the project, then yeah, I'd be like, yeah, let the guy keep the money.
Yeah. And I don't know how many units they're going to sell for the Game Boy Advance at this point. That's why I say I hope he gets to do a digital release so it actually sells some copies.
Yeah, because I'd love to review this.
Speaking of review, I think we're going to skip this month in video game history till next week because I'm kind of excited to get to this game Derek's going to be talking tonight. But before we do
That
that,
makes one of us.
before we do that, Derek, you want to do the Patreon shout outs?
Sure. As always, we like to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. Uh, Thank you, Brandon, for that comment in the chat. He said, Robin's Diamond 2024, bald and beautiful for America. Does that mean I have to shave my head?
You have to. Yeah, we have to be the Baldwin twins.
Yeah. Yeah, our newest patron, Brian Piotrowski, Nick W., Eld the Zombie, Yup Fed, aka Knife, James, aka at Jimbo Jr. on Discord, Raven, Danny House, Justin Nispel, John West, Daniel Salmon, Mr. B. Res Coffee himself, Mike Eveland, Tyler Watson, Axeblade07, R. Mez Jackson, Carlos Longoria, aka I am Scooter
Scooter McGee.
McGee, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Mr. Joey Image, and of course,
Mama Diamond.
Donna Diamond. Thank you all so much for your continued contributions and keeping the lights on for us here at the Nerd Cave Retro Podcast. For as little as $1 a month, you get early access to our commentary tracks. And every now and then, like I enjoy all the commentary tracks we do. But every now and then one comes along that is just it's a little bit better. It's a little more special than the other ones.
I'm not joking when I say that this month's commentary track, or last month's commentary track actually, is one of my favorite commentary tracks we've ever done. And it's still just a part one. We still have part two to get to.
Yeah, so we watched the first episode of Thunder in Paradise, which was the I don't know what you would call it. I guess it was the attempt to, or several attempts to launch Hulk Hogan into the mainstream as far as acting goes.
You could say that.
It's I did it's not a successful attempt, but an attempt nonetheless. But it did provide us with some great content for our Patreon subscribers. So in that aspect, I think I would call it a success. So if you want to check that out, you get it weeks early, much earlier than the general public. You also get your own RSS feed with an ad-free version of this podcast for as little as $1 a month. That's all you got to do. And if you want to do that, just head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And for new patrons, be sure to send us your social media info, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And tonight, Derek's going to be talking about
Ah. King Arthur at Knights of Justice is an action-adventure game developed by Manley and Associates and published by Enix for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in May of 1995. It is based on the cartoon series of the same title, which was loosely inspired by the King Arthur legend, and this game was released in North America exclusively. And I can, after playing it, I know why, because I'm sure the Japanese gamers played it and were like, "Nah, y'all
we're
can have this one.
we're good.
You guys have wanted an exclusive for so long. Here you go." So this isn't going to be a total bashing. So we've talked about this game off and on for I feel like the last year, maybe as far back as 2 years, because I remember seeing the title and I was intrigued by it because ever since I was a kid, I've been into like the medieval era. And with obviously Legend of Zelda, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have your shows like Game of Thrones, things that have like castles and dragons and sword fighting. I've been into all of that stuff since I was like 5 years old. So I was excited to play this because the King Arthur story is such a classic. And it's interesting to see different takes and different spins on it. So in that aspect, I was very curious about it and honestly excited because I like this kind of stuff. And then we found out there was the cartoon series.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know which one came first, but it was the cartoon series. So the good about this game, I like the look of it. It looks very much like one of the near endless Super Nintendo RPGs from that time.
Definitely
And
inspired by Link to the Past. Definitely.
oh, 100%. And that's not a knock because there's a lot of games that took from Link to the Past.
Yeah.
So I like the look of it. It looks like your typical Super Nintendo action RPG. And I also, when I found out what the story was, initially I thought it was kind of lame,
Hmm.
but also like in a fun, cheesy way. So the story of the game is this. You take on the role of a team of American football players who are transported to medieval England and given the mission to save King Arthur and, of course, his Knights of the Round Table and destroy the evil sorceress Morgana and her army. So what happens is she captures King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Merlin he looks into the future and he sees these football players and he thinks, oh, they're like modern day warriors.
Hmm.
So he transports them
Ah.
to medieval England. And you want to guess what the main protagonist's name is?
Hmm. I don't know. I can't even think of anything lame like Kyle or something like that.
Arthur King. uh yes, Arthur King.
That actually gave me a headache.
Well, I'm sorry for that, but I had to throw that out there.
Real, that is the laziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's not just lazy, it's lazy.
Wow.
It's It's what us filmmakers would call lazy writing.
And see, like the way they made this game sound, like I thought that like maybe the night, because I thought you played as King Arthur, and like because I knew about the whole football thing. Because what I was thinking was is like the Knights of the Round Table, something happened, and then these football players somehow got zapped into the past, and King Arthur had to use them to like help get the Knights of the Round back. That's what I thought this game was going to be about. I didn't know you were actually having to rescue King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah, and honestly, your idea would have made for a more interesting story. Because then you could have had cutscenes with, King Arthur who lives in this
Yeah,
ancient time, and these teenagers are like college kids, and they're having to work together.
yeah,
Like that would have actually been that would have been kind of interesting. So the gameplay, it's an action adventure gameplay from a top-down perspective, like we mentioned, with Link to the Past, Secret of Mana, Evermore, like all those RPGs at the time. You take on the role of Arthur King, and you're accompanied by two Knights of Justice. So the main hub world is the Castle of Camelot, and you go into the like a big meeting room, and you get to pick which two members of your party you want. But the thing is, like, none of them are really that different.
yeah.
Like, you've got some that are a little stronger than others. You've got some that are like your speedy characters, but it's not really enough to be like I could just pick the first two and I'll be okay.
Yeah, because I was watching some of the gameplay of this. I did not play the game. I watched a game, gameplay on YouTube, a gameplay video, and it just looked like it's very repetitive and samey the whole time. Like I thought at first I was like, this actually looks pretty good. It's a pretty good looking game. I'm not, nothing against the look of the game. Looks great, but I would scrub forward and scrub forward and scrub forward towards the end of the game, and everything still looked the exact same. There was no differentiation to anything. Like it all looked the exact same.
That's actually an excellent segue, my friend, because now we're going to talk about what I don't like about the game.
Let's get there. Let's
And
do it.
and that and that is everything else about the game. The music is forgettable. The gameplay is boring. It's way too easy because so you have your two characters, and you'll encounter like evil knights or like creatures in the woods and whatnot, and all you do is like a basic hack and slash.
Yeah.
Like you just slash slash dead slash slash dead, and it just gets, and all the areas look the same. So in the
Because
beginning of the game,
like
there's
I was thinking, that this is very much inspired by Link to the Past, but even though Link to the Past still sort of looks the same, the entire Hyrule map, and his, when he fights with the sword, at least it's interesting, and there's different ways to fight with the sword. But when I was watching the gameplay of this, like it's just he runs up and he's like ting ting ting, and then the guy falls over, and that's it. Like nothing interesting about it whatsoever.
yep, it's just you walk up, rinse and repeat
Ugh.
is how it is. So at the beginning of the game, your first objective is you have to find Excalibur. The thing is, like the road to the lake where Excalibur is blocked by a wall of fire. So once you find the wall of fire, you have to go back to the castle and talk with Merlin. But he needs these ingredients in order to like conjure up the right spell. So
Oh, see,
then
it's a
you have
game
to
of
find.
fetch quests. Is what it is. Fetch
No,
quests.
that's exactly what it is. The game is full of fetch quests. Like you have to find these things to get to your next objective, and then you have to find other stuff, and it's so repetitive,
And see, isn't
and it's so easy to get lost because everything looks the freaking same.
and you would think like Excalibur, it's like it's the most famous sword in history. don't you think they should have treated it like the Master Sword? Like once you get Excalibur, you can do like like ranged hits with it, like you can with Master Sword and stuff like that. Like do something interesting with it.
I mentioned Lord of the Rings earlier. I felt like I was the hobbits walking to Mordor because of the amount of walking that you have to do in this game.
And that just reminds me, there is a Lord of the Rings game for the Super Nintendo, and I'm wondering if that's any better than this game.
I mean, I feel like it has to be.
It's gotta
I mean,
be.
sure, it's possible that it could be worse, but I think the
Oh
chances
yeah,
of it being better are much higher. I'm not gonna be the one to find out.
I'll jump on that grenade. I'll do that review.
So it's just so boring. Like, yeah, you have an objective, but it feels like you're doing nothing because you have to basically do the fetch quests. And it's just the same thing over and over and over. And I'm like, where was the time and the love that should have been put into this game? Because as I'm playing it, I'm thinking, okay, you've got, yeah, it's kind of a cheesy story, but you could have made something interesting out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you wanted to do it more like A Link to the Past or another RPG, that's okay. Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of games took a lot from Link to the Past,
yeah,
and that's okay. That's what you do. It's what filmmakers do. They
yeah.
take elements from the classics and bring them into modern day. It's okay. So it's like after about an hour,
I was gonna
I was
ask
done
how
with it.
long, how
Yeah,
long you lasted playing this.
I gave myself an hour and I said, you know what? I gave it a good old college try, as they would say. And I said, no more. As Popeye the Sailor Man once said, I've stands till I can't stands no more. And I turned that game off and I have not picked it back up again since.
This okay. I'm. Here's a sentence I don't understand. It says roughly 24 people worked on this game. Though not all at the same time. It was initially planned for a 16 megabit cartridge, but 4 additional megabits were eventually added to expand the game. Development spanned about 2 years. What about this game required 4 more megabits for the 16-bit cartridge? I didn't see anything in the video that would make me think this was a giant game.
It's a giant something. I'll say that. To answer your question, Joey, yes, the game is based on the cartoon. I'm always get confused with those like adaptations. So it's like, is the cartoon based off the game or is it vice versa? But in this case, it was based off the cartoon. I'd be interested to give the cartoon a watch just to see if it's any better than the game.
I mean, we could do a commentary track for it, a watch along one of these months, but
The theme song for it was actually pretty cool.
it's got to be better than the game, right?
Yeah,
It's got to
it
be.
has to be. Well, the cherry on top of this of this of this pie or cake or whatever you will,
Pudding.
it has a password system. Need I say
Oh.
more? Is what I put in my notes.
So you're going to make a game that requires 4 more megabits to hold the memory, but you're not going to put a save feature in there?
We've said this before, but we haven't said it in a while, so I'm going to say it again. If The Legend of Zelda for the NES gives you the ability to save not just one file, but 3, no other games have an excuse. They don't.
Nope.
In a Super Nintendo game, especially, if you're still doing the password system,
Yeah.
you're doing it wrong.
I mean, I could understand it if you're just doing like a platformer where, like something like Metroid, I could understand doing like sort of a simple password system. But if you're doing something like an RPG, you have to have that battery backup system. Why would you not put that in for an RPG?
Could you imagine having to play Link to the Past with a password system?
God, no. That would be
God, people would
awful.
have rioted in the streets.
I mean, they already set a precedent with the original Legend of Zelda. I mean, if they would have gone to a password system, people would have taken their Super Nintendos and lit them on fire at that point.
Oh, if it was released today, you'd have YouTube videos of people like going Office Space on their on their Super Nintendos.
Dare I ask what you're gonna rate this thing? Unless you have anything else to say about it.
I did want to read a little bit of the reception of the game. Excuse me. The title received generally negative reviews.
You don't say.
Freelance critic, right? Robert Schmitz gave the title a 0.5 out of 11,
Ouch.
calling it awful and saying he hated it. Schmitz also criticized Enix's decision to base the game on a little known cartoon series. While Nintendo Power gave the game an 8-page walkthrough, its review score was quite low for its usual scoring standards, writing that the game was largely puzzle solving, but that the puzzles were merely finding hidden items, which the game tells you where they are. And that's another thing, too, is like, there's no real challenge to it. It's like, yeah, it tells you where you can find the items. So it's like, okay, well, I'll go find them and then I'll just move on to the next objective. There's no like, there's no motivation or challenge to it. I feel like an actor. What's my motivation?
Yeah.
There's not. And if you're curious about what Nintendo Power gave the game, it was a 2.7 out of 5.
Hey.
Yeah. So this is what I put in my notes, and I'll keep this clean. Overall, I think this could have been a fun and underrated game that got lost in the shuffle of the classic Super Nintendo RPGs. But it's a halfway done game, and I got bored an hour into playing it. Really disappointed. And what I would give it, I'm not going to give it as low as a 1
Mhm.
because I'd give any game that's made an automatic 1. It's still a good looking game, and I think there's some decent things that could have made this better than what it was. So I'm going to give it a 3.
Mm. Yeah. Seems like that's where it's going to hover. It just,
I can't give it a 4 because that's my favorite number,
yeah.
and I don't want to give that bad karma to my favorite number.
Just kind of glad I didn't play it because I had planned on playing some of it before this review, but then I was like, I don't know.
Well, you dodged a bullet on that one, my friend.
Yep. Nick asked in the chat room if the top 5 is going to be next week. I wanted to ask you, Derek. I did put up a poll for what the patrons wanted me to review. So 2 of my games got split 50-50. So I'm just going to do those 2 games over the next month. But instead of me doing a review next week, do you want to do the top 5 next week instead? And then I'll do my review after that.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't done a top 5 in a while.
And usually we hit up the patrons and the top 5 tab in the Discord. But you said something a while back that kind of stuck with me. And I think because we have already done top 5 worst video game covers, let's do top 5 best.
I love it because
So
there's some
that's
great video game
oh
box art.
yeah. Now, I've been thinking about it for a few days now, and I'm it's going to be so hard to whittle down my list.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to whittle down like 10 honorable mentions.
Joey
Oh,
says top 5 King Arthur and the Knights of Justice episodes. No,
if it's anything like the game, I'll go ahead and say the last 5.
yeah. But yeah, so next week will be top 5. Let me write that down in the notes here. Top 5 best video game covers. So go ahead and get those lists to us either through email or on the Discord or over on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're hanging out. Just send us those lists, and we'll put them in the show notes, and I'll read it right here on the show. And then after that, after next week, I'm going to be doing Super Adventure Island for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And I can already tell you right now that it's already a better game than King Arthur.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that. And then the week after that, I'm gonna review a good game.
Yeah, awesome. And then after that, I'm going to be doing Little Samson. So I've actually been playing both of these games at the same time.
I'm just going to call it Little Samson.
So and we'll have a discussion when we get there because I know I do not have a physical copy of Little Samson because it is like $2,000 for a copy of it or
What?
$1,000 or so. It's like one of the most expensive Nintendo games, and
Hold
that's
on, let
why
me look this up.
we're gonna have a big bone to pick with Nintendo on why can't we just get this stuff? Why can't you just let us purchase these games from the Nintendo online shop?
My God, yeah, Little Samson on eBay is $2,300,
Yeah.
and here's one for 3 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's one for $4,250,
Jeez.
and the condition of it's not pristine. Like there's some
Yeah.
dents on the cartridge. The label looks a little worn. Jesus, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I got a ROM of it and I've been playing it. And it's a great game. And I would love to have a way to play it legitimately. But Nintendo doesn't want to do that for us these days. So we're going to talk about that when we get there. But that's like a month from now. So we'll worry about that then. But if you got some stuff, things y'all want to say, email us. Send us some emails. I'll read them right here on the show, and we'll have some discussions about this stuff. And maybe if we make enough noise, Nintendo will finally hear us one of these days.
Rattle the cages,
Yeah,
if you will.
for real.
I
Viva la revolution.
Viva la revolution. So I think what I might do is I think I'm going to put up a poll too for the pagers to decide my next review.
Awesome. So if you're a patron, guess what? You get to tell us what to review. So, and give us suggestions too. If you're a patron, if you're the $3 and up tier, where you get to pick what extra episodes and the reviews are going to be, let us know what you want us to review. If you got something we haven't gotten to yet, please let us know. We'll take all the suggestions in the world.
Yeah.
So, anything before we get out of here? What's going on with the Real Wisdom podcast?
So I took last week off due to it being the 4th of July. So I'm going to put up 2 more archived episodes, and then I'll put out a trailer because I'll have actual like new content in the can. And then the show will launch on August 1st, which is just under a month from now, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, you can head over to linktree.com/realwisdompod to subscribe to social media, YouTube channel, the podcast feed, all that stuff. All the old episodes of the Derek Diamond Experience are still on the feed, so you can go check those out. And if you want to check out the latest on my wife's short film, Plain Jane, head over to facebook.com/plainjanemovie. And it's crazy to say this, but we start shooting this weekend.
Wow. That came fast.
It did. We were talking about it at the end of last year,
Yeah.
and that feels like a couple of weeks ago.
Well, good luck with everything. I wish I could come over and help, but the next one, I'll be there for the next one.
Next time, baby.
But go check out the Open Micers podcast at Open Micers on Twitter and Instagram, openmicers.com. We have had some really good episodes and guests lately. This week, behind the Patreon wall until Friday, we got to talk with, oh crap, I keep forgetting it. We've had so many guests, I keep forgetting who we've had on the show. Just go listen to the show. We've had so many great guests over the last couple. I can't even keep up, and we're like a week ahead on our episodes. So many interviews that we had one a couple of weeks ago where a guy one of the comedians we had on got sued by the city of Lafayette, Louisiana, for putting up a joke Facebook event over in Lafayette. Got sued by the city. So that was a harrowing tale to go. So go listen to that. You're missing out if you're not over there listening to the Open Micers podcast.
Talk about rattling some cages.
Yeah, a little bit. So go check it out at Open Micers on Twitter and Instagram. And Derek, is there anything else before we get out of here tonight?
I think that's it.
Let's out. the door. Ooh, that was a hitch. Email. That weirded me out. I gotta go check this stuff out. Email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. Nerdcaveretro.com is our link tree that includes our socials, our Patreon, our merch shop, which is at ncrmerch.com. You can go get t-shirts, hats, stickers, magnets, bags, mugs, and whatever your nerdy little heart desires. And also, leave us a review. If you don't have any money for a Patreon, you can't afford anything out for a shop, I know times are tough. It's hard out there these days. Go leave us a review and or a 5-star rating on all the podcasting platforms out there. So, Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes.
Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
And that was an episode.
Yeah.
All right, something's going on here with my microphone, so I might have to restart the computer here in a bit.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it went out yesterday in a power surge, and now like all kind of weird little things have been happening during the show. So if I seem distracted during the show, it's because I've been trying to keep everything going till I can restart the computer.
Well, hopefully that's all it'll take.
I hope so. That's weird. Every time I tried to use the soundboard, it would cut me out.
Mm.
And I was trying to type for the chat room, but OBS, like I was trying to type and it wouldn't even let me type in the message thing. So I know
That's
you.
weird.
So all of you in the YouTube right now, I've been trying to talk to you, but for some reason I can't type a message in OBS. It's weird.
That is very weird.
All right, let me turn this off here. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we'll be back next week with the top 5 best video game covers. So get us your lists, and we will see you all next week.